In the biggest game of the season, the Dallas Stars get a massive win on the road over the Colorado Avalanche by a final score of 7-4. And now they have a 5-point advantage in the Central Division.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan and play-by-play voice of the Chippewa Steel. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. What a hockey game last night, and what a win for the Dallas Stars. They take down the Avalanche by a final score of 7-4. They have a 5-point advantage in the Central Division as they look to lock up the Western Conference and lock up home ice advantage in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Happy Monday, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Never miss an episode. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and shout out to all you everydayers out there. And we got a treat last night in Colorado. The Stars were ready to play right from the hop, and they get the job done. They bounce back after a tough loss in Chicago the night before. We have to touch on all the greatness that happened last night in Colorado. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. The Stars get their 26th victory on the road this season. And yes, that sets a new franchise record in a single season. They have been phenomenal on the road. They improved to 49-20-9 overall, and they have 107 points through 78 games this season. Crazy that there's only 4 games remaining in the campaign as the Dallas Stars are rolling into the playoffs. But it was such a great effort last night in Colorado for the Stars. Coming off a game where you outplayed Chicago the day before, you're playing on a back-to-back in the altitude, you have to fly in the same day, and they just came out on their toes and ready to force the issue. Unfortunately, Oettinger gave up that little floater from Sean Walker to get the game started. But then Dallas just kind of took over from there, and they looked like the better team for large stretches of the game. The power play comes through huge. And that's really the key in the contest was Dallas capitalized and took advantage of Colorado's mistakes. They made them pay for it, and they gave themselves enough cushion to sustain or at least survive the late push from Colorado. They get the insurance goal late from Wyatt Johnston, and the Stars were able to close it out, and they win the game by a final score of 7-4. And we're going to touch on the defense here later on in today's episode, but the defending was outstanding. They were aggressive. They forced Colorado to earn their ice and earn their opportunities. The Avalanche had to throw a lot of pucks from distance, and to their credit, they got bodies in front. They made it hard for Oettinger to see some of those shots, but the Stars did such a good job in front of Otter of cleaning up and boxing out, but the offense continues to really be the story of the season. I mean, they pot 3 on the power play. Of course, Johnston's goal late in the third period was huge, and it really was a playoff hockey game. It came down to just nitty-gritty details, icings, winning faceoffs, getting net front advantage, net front positioning, taking the eyes away from the netminder, deflections, and just winning 50-50 battles on the perimeter. Just the details of the hockey game. And a lot of goals came off of draws. The Drew Ann goal in the third period was off an icing from the Stars, an ill-advised icing. and they get that goal to cut the lead to 1, and then the game turned on its head. Fortunately, the Stars were able to withstand the push from there, and they end up closing it out against a very, very good hockey team in the Colorado Avalanche. And both sides were feeling it late. You could tell both were exhausted trying to get it over the finish line, and the Stars needed to play with a lead. It was so big that they clapped back twice at the end of that first period with Jamie Benn and, of course, Matt Duchene, who scored a beauty for his 25th of the season. It had been a while since he was able to pot one. That was huge for Dallas to at least get the lead. Of course, Colorado came back with the power play to tie it in the second, but then boom, they get the 4-minute double minor, and then it's Rope Hintz, it's Seguin, and you take the life out of the building, you take the life out of the Avs, and you're able to control the hockey game from there. I mean, the trios were phenomenal up front from puck drop. The Steele, Foxa, Smith line really, really set the tone, just grinding in the offensive zone, spending lots of time cycling, tiring out Avalanche defenders, and that led to goals for Jamie Benn. That led to goals for Matt Duchene, because you just continue to pressure and tire out the Colorado defense, who, of course, has played, 3 and 4 nights, and that wears on a team. And the Stars just wore him down in the first period and a half, and the power play comes up huge, and they're able to pick up a huge win in what Pete DeBoer called the biggest game of the season. And so many different players had big nights, but a big shout out to that fourth line for the Stars. They did not pick up any points, so they don't get any love on the score sheet, but we're going to show them love for the effort and how they set the top 9 up for success, or the top 6, for success with their play. And Wyatt Johnston, of course, continues to be incredible. He has 31 goals on the season. He picks up a 3-point night. Great to see Seguin get a couple goals as well. And just such a hard-earned 2 points from the Stars. Just workmanlike. And we haven't seen that a ton throughout this season, where they just pull up their bootstraps and they don't feel sorry for themselves, and they go and earn themselves a victory after a real tough loss in Chicago, where you outplay your opponent and Mrazek plays phenomenal. You have to fly into Colorado the next day, and you can get boat raced in that building. The Avalanche can score at will. That's why it was so important for the Stars to strike 3 times on the power play, because frankly, that was the difference, and they may not pick up a full 2 points without it. You have to give yourself as much cushion as possible against Nate McKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche, because they are going to push. They're going to get a lot of opportunities, because the Stars are really going to feel it, and they felt it in the third period. They were going to play really passive, and by the time they got out of their own zone, all they could do is get the red line and chip in and get off for fresh bodies. That was kind of the cycle in the third period, as Colorado just came in waves. And you have to give a huge credit to the Stars defense for just shutting things down, especially in the first 2 periods. They made Colorado earn everything. They made them earn time and space. They made them earn their shot opportunities. Nothing came easy in the game. It was a great example of what playoff hockey is going to be like. It's tight areas. It's not a lot of space, not a lot of time to make decisions. And the Stars were so crisp, especially in that second period. I mean, tape to tape, hard, crisp passes, wheeling and dealing through the neutral zone, which led to some of their opportunities offensively. Some of the best passing we have seen all season long, and that was a huge contributor to last night's 7-4 victory over the Colorado Avalanche. Matt Duchene has a big night as well. He ends up with 3 points. Benn ends up with 3 points. Thomas Harley ends up with 3 points. I mean, the Stars had a little bit of everything in the game. They were phenomenal in the dots too. 58% in the game. They were rocking along at about 65 for the first 35 minutes or so of the game, which allowed them to play with the puck. It allowed their power play to thrive, and it put Colorado on their heels, certainly. They blocked a lot of shots, 27 block shots for the Stars in the game. And you look at some of the other numbers, 5 giveaways on the night to the 8 of Colorado. And it was a huge win, a much needed win. And it's not over, of course, in the Central Division, but the Stars are able to extend their lead. They now have a 5-point advantage, and they're that much closer to locking up the Central Division. And it was a great night from Jake Ottinger too. 34 saves. He gave up the tough wobbler from Walker early, but he was huge on that sequence right before the Benn goal. He made a couple of big stops right on the doorstep, and he looked cool and calm. His rebound control was just fine in the game. And the Stars leaned on him when they needed him, and the Stars played well in front of him when he needed them. And they certainly get the job done. But 6 goals or 5 goals, you have to win the hockey game. The Stars had the 5-3 advantage heading into the third, and you have to win that hockey game. 5 goals should win you a hockey game 100% of the time. I'm sorry, especially with this Dallas Stars team, with how lethal they can be offensively, and they're improved defensively. You have to be able to win a hockey game when you score 5, even against Colorado, who I know is spectacular. They're really good, and they can score in a hurry, but you have to find a way to win the game, and they did. They shut it down late. Props to them. They get a goal with less than 5 minutes to go. Excuse me. Thanks to Wyatt Johnston, and they take the victory. So great stuff all around, including the defending. And we're going to segue into that here. The defending was some of the best we've seen all year, and especially Chris Tanev. It was his best game as a Dallas Star to date. He was phenomenal. Let's highlight him and touch on the great defensive play of the Dallas Stars in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Sleeper. The playoffs are right around the corner, Stars fans, and regardless of where the Stars are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contest. All you have to do is pick the studs of the National Hockey League. As much as I hate to say it, Nathan McKinnon is a stud. He picks up a couple of helpers last night. You can pick McDavid, Ovechkin, who of course is chasing down the goal record. You pick more or less for certain Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus or minus in a given game. If you correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats, you could win 100 times your bet on Sleeper. You heard me, Stars fans. 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks, and you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and location availability. Hey, Stars fans, be sure to check out Locked On Sports today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It is available on YouTube. Just like Locked On Stars, hit that notification bell, never miss an episode. Please drop a comment below. Let me know your reaction to last night's win, because I was fired up that the Dallas Stars were able to take down the Colorado Avalanche, especially on the road. And for them to pit up 7 or 6 with the empty netter was spectacular, but the defense was equally as impressive. And Chris Tanev just put on a defensive clinic last night against the Avs. A defensive clinic. He proved Jim Neal right last night. He proved him right. As if he already hadn't. That game was a statement game from Chris Tanev. Just so good. He's physical. He's in the right position. His stick is always in the right spot. He gets deflections. Of course, he blocks shots. He's one of the best in the entire league at doing that. And you pair him with Lindell, who also loves to eat pucks and is just battling through a lower body injury. He was questionable to return in the third period at the second intermission, but Esa Lindell did return, which was a great sign, and he did not miss a beat. But Chris Tanev was so good in the hockey game, and he just showed why the Stars needed him. They needed that type of presence of someone that can just shut it down on top of your crease. He shuts it down. He boxes out. Of course, he's physical, but he's mobile enough, and he makes smart plays beneath his goal line. He sets up his partner for success. He sets up his line mates for success when he's on the sheet. He's a great penalty killer as well, even though the Stars got burned on one of them. He's just so phenomenal. He broke up a 2-on-1 in the game. There was a point in the third period where Colorado won a board battle and the Stars were a bit discombobulated, and Tanev just goes right to the front of the net. He cleans up his man. Johnston was able to get back to help out, and it ends up into a nothing play. And Dallas just defended so hard. They were so aggressive. And as I mentioned earlier, they made Colorado earn everything. And that can be tiring. It can be a tiring task in and itself to constantly have to work through 3 or 4 white sweaters to get to Ottinger. And the Stars defended in layers last night. There was just constant support. And Ray Ferraro made a great point in the third period as well, when there was a scrum on the near side of the rink that lasted about 10 to 15 seconds. And he mentioned, even if Colorado wins this battle, they have to go through 5 guys to get to Ottinger, because the Stars are in the right position and they're defending intelligently. By the way, Thomas Harley has 3 assists on the night, a couple of power play helpers. So don't forget about that. He finishes with a game score of 6.43, a huge night. Expected goals for 2.33 for Thomas Harley. Him and Miro were sensational on the night. Miro finishes with an expected goals for of 2.41. They were really good in their own zone as well. And the Stars they bucked up defensively, and they played a lot of minutes. Miro ended up with over 24 minutes or 26 minutes in the contest. Harley was behind him at 24, and then Chris Tanev played 22 minutes on the night. So they had a heavy usage. And I love, by the way, the deployment of everybody just playing with everybody. Suter plays with Miro on occasions. Suter plays with Tanev. Lindell's with Heiskanen. Harley's with Lindell. Harley's with Heiskanen. Harley's with Suter. You name it, just throw everybody out there, put them together, and get the job done. They're so versatile. They have so many different pairings they can go to, and they're going to need that come playoff time. That is going to be such an underrated little weapon, or little, I guess, wrinkle that Pete DeBoer can throw in the playoffs. You don't have to be married to a certain pairing. The Stars have 6 really solid defensemen that can get the job done. Play them all together and see what happens. And this kind of leads me into the Nils Lundkvist conversation. I thought he looked pretty good for the first half of the game. I thought he actually looked really good. He looked like he was in good positioning. He was physical. He was making things happen. He didn't give up a ton. He was active on the offensive side of the puck too. And I thought he played really well, but then he gives up that goal late in the second period. And that's where Jani Hakanpaa is going to get inserted back into the lineup. On a play like that, when the puck is shot from the point and Lundkvist is in the right position, he's doing everything correctly. He's trying to box out Duheim, but Duheim is just a bit stronger, a bit hungrier, and he gets to the loose puck and he buries it. And it was a big goal at the time for Colorado because it cut the deficit to 2 instead of 3 heading into the final 20. And unfortunately, in a night where Nils Lundkvist could have done himself a lot of favors, it was a tough night. He played 8 minutes in the game, minus 1.55 game score. I don't think it was as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be, but it certainly wasn't his best game in what was a playoff style game, right? And he needed to live up to the play, and it just wasn't there. It just wasn't there, and that's where Pete DeBoer is going to go with Hakanpaa. You get the size, you get the physicality, and that probably doesn't happen. I'll argue that Hakanpaa is probably going to give up a lot more because of his lack of mobility, but at the same time, it's what are you going to live with? Right. And that's the question that Pete DeBoer is going to have to answer. But at the same time, it is not a bad thing that you have 7 quality defensemen that you can go to at any point, because people are going to get banged up. Guys are going to get hurt in a playoff run. That's just how it works. They're grueling games, and you're going to have to use every single body you can. But just such a solid night defensively. It was a solid night in general. I'm frankly satisfied with the hockey game last night. 7-4 win on the road for the Dallas Stars. They take down the Colorado Avalanche. Let's take a quick peek at the Central race. Take a look at the possible first-round scenarios for the Dallas Stars, as they now have a 5-point advantage in the Central Division. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car and the MVP to bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. I do want to give a quick apology for the way I sound here today. It may be a bit off. I have been fighting off something, a bug. I don't know what it is for the last 7 days. My throat has been going through it. My whole body has. I am just completely out to lunch here, but I'm trying to push through and deliver a great episode here today. So apologize if I have any flubs or any foggy moments in today's episode. It has been a real grind, but happy to be here and happy to talk about such a great win for the Stars in what Pete DeBoer called the biggest game of the season, and the Stars get the job done. But it does massive things for their playoff futures. They have a 5-point advantage over the Avs. As I mentioned, they are that much closer to locking up the Western Conference. They have a 5-point advantage over Vancouver, who does have a game in hand on them, but a chance to win the West. and of course, lock up home ice advantage for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I talked about this with Sarcastic Remarks last Friday. By the way, I jumped on with all of those boys last Friday. That episode is available on YouTube. I do want to give a quick plug to that. Go over and jump over to that. We hopped on and talked for about an hour. It's the first time I met those guys, and they were awesome. They were so much fun, and I had a great time with them. And I think it was a great episode too. We talked about a little bit of everything. So yeah, go ahead and hop over there if you have not, to take a listen. But I think the Stars want to win the President's Trophy. They want home ice advantage. They've made that very clear. I know Ottinger a couple of times this season has mentioned they want to win the President's Trophy, which I think is an admirable goal. They have some work to do. They trail New York by 3 points, but home ice is going to be massive. You want to have game sevens on home ice. And I don't think home ice has as much of an effect as it does today than it did in years past. But game sevens are huge, and they are an entire different animal than game one, as we all know. Look at the second round last year against Seattle. Who knows what happens if the Stars have to go to Seattle for game 7 against the Kraken, but they have it on home ice. They can use that crowd to their advantage, and they end up winning the series. And the only reason they got home ice advantage is because Seattle beat Colorado in the first round. Otherwise, you would have not had home ice advantage in that series. So it is really important. In the President's Trophy, the curse and all that, I don't think the Stars are fazed by it. And of course, Dallas has had some good history when winning the President's Trophy. So I would love for them to win the Western Conference, at the least. Win the West, and guarantee that you have game sevens on home ice throughout the playoffs. And as of right now, if the season ends today, you're taking on Vegas, which you want to avoid by all cost. I don't think you're going to have to end up playing Vegas in the first round. They do have a game in hand on LA, and they have a couple on Nashville. So we'll see how that all shakes out. That would really, really be a gut punch if you had to play Vegas in the first round. But look, that is a very real possibility. You want to see if you can get LA or Nashville. You're much deeper than both of those teams. And frankly, you just match up a lot better than you do against Vegas, because yeah, Vegas has struggled, but for my money, they're probably the top 3 most complete teams in the West, right? I put Colorado up there. I like Vancouver, and I like Vegas. I think Vegas, Colorado, Dallas, and Vancouver are probably your 4 that are the most complete. And if you're the Stars, you don't want to face one of those juggernauts in the first round. And of course, the Stars don't really have control over that, so I'm sure they're not worried about it. But as a fan and as someone that is talking about the team every day, I'm going to certainly keep my eyes on that. But either way, a much needed win on home ice. I mean, massive win in Denver after a tough loss in Chicago the night before. And just an overall great effort from the Dallas Stars. Very pleased with the Stars in a game, in all honesty, I did not have huge hopes for with Dallas playing on a back-to-back. But as this team proves time and time again, they prove me wrong. They prove us wrong. They prove the doubters wrong. And they bounce back. They handle adversity really well because they have a ton of leaders. They got great veteran leadership, and they got great young players that aren't fazed by anything. And that's a great sign. All righty. That'll do it for today's episode. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to hit the hay. I need some rest. Try to reset here, get my thoughts in order, and we'll hit the ground running tomorrow. Stars taking on the Buffalo Sabres next on Tuesday. We'll break that down tomorrow. We'll talk about the Stars once again, as we usually do. This is me rambling, trying to get to an outro. Anyways, have a great rest of your day. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support. Please be sure, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, JoeyTheJet19. Follow Locked On Stars on Twitter and the socials as well. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.